Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem.
Before we begin our program tonight, we want to take a moment to recognize that our thoughts are always with Israel, the brave soldiers of the Israel Defense Forces, and the hostages. Our community has done so much over the past 7 months to show our support and to give tzedakah. And so in a moment, we will begin with a prayer. And after that, Ohav's financial secretary, Michael Wajnrajch, is going to help us commemorate Yom HaShoah together.
Oh, Shalom, Henry.
We now welcome Rabbi Ebbin to lead us into Tehillah.
Shalom Alot, Sinai, Elohim, Mi'ayin, Yavo Ezri. Ezri mi'im Adonai, Oseh Shemayim V'aretz, Ayitain Lamod Raglecha, Al Yanum Shomrecha. Hinei Lo Yanum V'lo Yishan Shomer Yisrael. Anai Shomrecha, Anai Tzilcha Yad Yamincha. Yom HaShemesh Lo Yakeka V'yirech Balayla. Anai Yishmorcha B'korah Yishmor Et Nafshecha. Anai Yishmor Tzitcha V'wecha. Yata B'yad Olam. A prayer for our Chayalei Tzahal, our sons and daughters who serve in the IDF. We pray that God continue to shine His light of protection upon all of them. Mishaberach Avotenu, Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, Hu Yivarech et Chayalei Tzava Hagana L'Yisrael, Omdim Mishmor Etzenu B'Orei Eloheinu, Yigvul Abanon V'Yad B'Aretzayim, Minyam HaGadol Lavo Ravav V'Shavir V'Yam, Yitein Adonai Yitzavenu, Hakamim Aleinu Nigafim L'Pneihem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yishmor V'Yatzil et Chayaleinu, V'Kol Tzara V'Tzukah V'Kol Nega U'Machla, Yishlach Bracha V'Atzlacha B'Chol Ma'asei Yedeihem, Yad B'Rsonim Taklim Yatr Mekeder Yeshua V'Teretz Tzachon, Yidhem HaKadov Kedonai Leichem Aleichem Achem, V'Lechem Lechem Me'un V'Echel L'Shetchem, V'Nomar Amen. And now the prayer for those hostages. We pray with all of our hearts that they will be released very soon. Mishaberach Avotinu, Emeritus Yaakov Yosef Moshe Aharon David Shlomo, Hu Yivarech V'Yishmor V'Yintzor Et Achinu B'Eit Yisrael Hashvuyim, V'Avur Sha'nu Mitvalim Avuram, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Aleihem, Yishamar B'Chol Tzar V'Tzidlam B'Chol Nega U'Machla, Yishlach Bracha V'Atzlacha B'Chol Ma'asei Yedeihem, Yotziim Mechushech Mitzalav V'Yishevem Meher Lechik Mishpoteihem, V'Nomar Amen.
Mike Wajnrajch would now come up to commemorate Yom HaShoah.
Congratulations to all the honorees. I'm very excited to see so many of you I haven't seen in so long. I'm actually here just to talk about a new program that we're starting at Ohav. It is the Yellow Candle program. We're going to ask everyone who's here to take a yellow candle on the way home with a leaflet that sits next to the bags. The yellow candle is to commemorate the Holocaust, specifically the children who were all killed. 2 million children killed during the Holocaust. So we're going to ask you to take a yellow candle home with a piece of paper that has a name of a specific child and a little bit of history on them, and to light the candle tonight, because tonight starts Yom HaZikaron L'Shoah U'Gvura. I hope this program takes over at Ohav, becomes an annual event. It is a program started by the Federation of Jewish Men's Clubs, and it's been going on for years, but I only recently learned about it and helped bring it to Ohav, and I hope that we take it over and establish this as an annual event. I think we need to remember, of course, the Holocaust. We need to remember everything, the positive and the negative things that happen in our world, including the Holocaust. But we also don't just look backwards, right? We don't just remember the terrible things. We have to remember the good things. We have to remember also all the wonderful things that came out after the years after the war, including all the wonderful things that the Holocaust survivors and the next generation did for Judaism. Establishing yeshivot, establishing B'tei Knesset, like Ohav Sholom. If it wasn't for that generation, we would not be here celebrating Ohav's history. So I want to say thank you to all the people who stood up after the Holocaust and forged a new future for the Jews, at the same time that we commemorate those who perished. Thank you.
It's now my pleasure to introduce a special guest that we have here today. Our county executive, Bruce Blakeman, is with us and came to send his good wishes to the honorees and to Ohav.
Thank you very much. It is certainly an honor to be here on your 60th anniversary dinner and the 60th anniversary of your shul. As some of you may know, this is the 125th anniversary of Nassau County. So to put it in perspective, when you started in Merrick 60 years ago, the county was only 65 years old. And at the time the county was formed, Theodore Roosevelt was the governor. And he laid the cornerstone to the Theodore Roosevelt building that now stands as the Executive and Legislative Office building. Nassau County is home to almost 1.5 million people. We are larger than 10 states in population. But what may be of particular interest to you is we are now the third largest Jewish county in the United States. There are 300,000 people in Nassau County who identify themselves as being Jewish. So we are an important community. And going to events like this and celebrating events like this is important. But the timing of this event also coincides with our remembrance of the Holocaust. But the mission has changed since a year ago. It's not just a remembrance anymore. This is a call to action. When you see what's going on around the country, it is important for us to realize that we must stand strong and stand together. And we must hold all of our public officials accountable, because if we've learned anything from the Holocaust, it's that weakness invites danger. Here in Nassau County, we had the same people that you see at Columbia University and NYU, the same people that are shutting down Times Square and the Brooklyn Bridge. They were right here in Nassau County on more than one occasion. But I told our police commissioner that they were entitled to free speech, that we would set up an area on the sidewalk, that they could exercise their free speech, but if they stepped off the sidewalk, you were to politely tell them to get back on the sidewalk. If they did not, you arrest them. No tents, no plywood cities, no violence, and no anti-Semitic harassment. So I think we should all right now give a very, very rousing round of applause to our police department for what they do to keep us safe. Both my parents were World War II veterans. I'm one of the few people that can say that. My son Avi served in the United States Marine Corps. My son-in-law Ilan served as a paratrooper in the IDF. And my other son, Arlen, was a prosecutor in Miami. It didn't happen by accident. Service was very important in my family. Love of America was very important in my family. And these same people that are committing these anti-Semitic acts, you notice, death to Israel, and then death to America. So this is as much as an attack on America and American values as it is anti-Semitism. So all I would ask you to do is to stay strong, be vigilant. These are troubling times. And yes, we can recognize the good things and the happy times like this evening with the anniversary. But we cannot shirk our duty to stand strong, because it's not just about us. It's about our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. So with that, Mazal Tov, may Hashem bless each and every one of you. May Hashem bless Rabbi Wohlberg with many years as your Rabbi Emeritus of good health. Rabbi Ebbin, may he bless him. And may Hashem bless the United States of America and the states of Israel. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to our county executive for his support. So I would now like to officially welcome you to Ohav Sholom's 60th anniversary and 60th annual journal dinner. celebrating our 60th anniversary and our long-standing members who joined our beloved shul in the first 15 years of its inception and who remain the heart of our communal family today. My name is Jordan Smith, and I am the current president of Ohav Sholom. Tonight, we will be taking you on a tour of Ohav through the eras, from the 1960s, when our synagogue was only an idea and one of our founding members, Robert Braverman's head, to today. In the first part of our program now, you'll hear remarks from the spiritual leaders who have shaped our shul, our Rabbi Emeritus, the legendary Jeremiah Wohlberg, and our current fearless and compassionate leader, Rabbi Ebbin. Fearless, yes. In the second part of our program, after dinner, you will get to hear from honorary representatives of the shul's lay leaders, our past presidents Chichi Brumberg and Dave Zwerin, and a leader of our Hebrew school, Les Grussgot, and we will also present a video montage that was put together in a labor of love, taking us on a tour of Ohav's history, featuring anecdotes from some of tonight's honorees. What you will learn, which should come as no surprise to all of us who know and love Ohav, is that no matter how long it's been since you first became a member, whether you joined 2 years ago or 30 years ago, whether you're in shul every week, have young kids, have grandchildren or great-grandchildren, or have moved away and it's been years since you've been back, everyone agrees that Ohav is their home. It is a special place, welcoming, unique, accepting, non-judgmental, there when you need it, with volunteers who remain active and committed for decades, such as one of many examples I could give. Two of tonight's honorees, Rochelle Berger, who served as Sisterhood President, and Larry Berger, who served as Fundraising Vice President in the 80s and has remained on the Board of Trustees for over 30 years, and who are the founders of the Rabbi Jeremiah Wohlberg Institute for Adult Jewish Learning. Caring and giving members who become lifelong friends. And as my friends and two of tonight's other honorees, Larry and Carolyn Valinkin, who were membership chairmen and chaired the UJA Synagogue Breakfast for years, put it, two gifted rabbis to whom we are forever grateful, who help us to grow personally and spiritually. We all have the privilege of calling this very special community home, and you will always be welcomed back, no matter how long it's been. There's no place on earth like Ohav. And I'm thrilled to be able to share this special night with all of you, my friends and my second family. So now I would like to introduce our current fearless spiritual leader, Rabbi Ebbin, who's been a pleasure to work with as president, and we all know how hard he works. So Rabbi Ebbin, some remarks.
Thank you so much, Jordan. I know about the program tonight, so I would be remiss if I didn't take 15 seconds of my time to take the opportunity to thank Jordan Smith, who I don't think I've ever seen anyone work this hard, particularly for this event that she wanted to be so perfect. I said this before and I'll say it again, Jordan by far was the best man for this job. And we are so blessed to be a part under her leadership and for her to be my partner. It's been the last year and God willing next year as well. It is a special privilege to be a part of this 60th anniversary celebration of Ohav Sholom, honoring our longest standing members. What is unique about this special cohort of our shul is that despite the fact that I've been the spiritual leader since 2010, they still justly refer to me as the new rabbi. Make sense? Tonight we are honoring a large cohort of our honorees, these special people who not only helped build our shul from its earliest days, but took her through and cared for her through its growing pains, its challenges, and anyone who's involved in shul business knows the many hiccups that happen all the time. And with their help, not only did the shul survive, but to the surprise of even some of our honorees, they survived. I've heard from several of our honorees that there were some board meetings over the years, and they said, I'm not sure how I got it out, they were alive. So shul politics, as we know, can be very dangerous. We are so pleased and to be celebrating you today. Of course, we're here because for the last 40 to 60 years, our honorees, our special people, have always remained in love with Ohav Sholom. Pirkei Avot, which we study during this period of time, Pirkei Avot begins with the Shalshelet HaMasorah, the train of tradition. It tells us Moshe Kibel Torah Sinai, Masrur Yeshua, Yeshua Zakenim, Zakenim L'Neviim, L'Neviim Masrur L'Anshe Knesset HaGadola. Moshe received the Torah from Mount Sinai. He gave it over to the elders. The elders went to the prophets. The prophets eventually gave it to the men of the Great Assembly. What's interesting is that there are two times at this point where the Mishnah describes that word Masrua, that they gave it over. The first one, when Moshe gave it over to Joshua, and the last one, when the prophets gave it over to the men of the Great Assembly, the Anshe Knesset HaGadola. And one of the explanations is because the leap between those two stages was so significant and so dramatic. The leap from Moses to Joshua was unbelievable. You can imagine being the founding rabbi and then handing it over to some schnook rabbi to take it over a bunch of years later. And then, from the prophets to the men of the Great Assembly from the time of the Second Temple period, that leap was just as significant and huge. The reason being, as it explains, is that once prophecy ceased to exist, there was no direct line from God. The nation, the people, had to figure out how to reinvent itself and figure out how to continue the traditions based on a message that came from before. My dear honorees, you are the ones who carried that message. The message of the values that this shul was built on, of Am Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, and Torah Yisrael, of the nation of Israel, the people of Israel, and the Torah of Israel. You were the ones who passed down those values, how the ideal kehillah, the community and congregation in God's eyes, the ideal is one that spans a wide range of ages, of backgrounds, and of personalities. You were the one who taught us, and passed down that message, how we have a responsibility to make this world better for all of God's children, and to get involved and make a difference. You are the ones who taught us how every single member of the Jewish people is a member of our family, and they are welcome and encouraged to grow in our synagogue at their own level and at their own pace. How you shared what a privilege it is to volunteer and to serve. Over the last couple of months, I had the privilege to speak to so many of you in preparation for this event. And I had a lot of fun. I wish I had more time, and I could spend more time with a lot of you. You spoke about your volunteer work over those years, about the lifelong friendships that you made. You spoke about the inspiration that you received from some rabbi flailing his arms like this and yelling, "Whose child is that?" And you spoke about your Ohav heroes. And you spoke about many unsung heroes. As many of you who have been around for quite some time know that for every Herb Kronish, there was a Herb and Fran Alexander, one of my behind-the-scenes heroes and prophets from our family who are upset at me that I mentioned them. For every Ron Dean and Erwin Duffler, every Jerry Gold, there was an Irving Hauptman, a Miriam Glass, an Ezra Shofet, a Wally Stern. For every Murray Schneider, there was a Morris Seligstein, a Nancy Boyman, a Nat Levitin, and a Susan Jaffe. Listening to all of your stories and those special people that were so close to your hearts. You spoke about your milestones. You spoke about watching your children grow up in the Hebrew school, the bar and bat mitzvahs, the ufrufs, and your children and your spouses. Tonight, we honor all of you, but we honor many of your loved ones who aren't here because they were a part of the fabric of who we are and the only reason why we're standing here. They were part of the prophets that handed down that message. The Ronnie Deans, Deanna Levine, Claire Leibowitz, Josh German, Dan Lewis, Bill Eggert, Harold Kuehl, Leo Zuckerberg, Miriam Zwerin, Bernard Otterman, Alan Weinstein, Carol Zimmerman, and so many others. Tonight, they're here too, because they love Ohav Sholom just like you. Tonight with you, we celebrate all of those people, the elders of Ohav Sholom who have shared with us the message how to live a life of meaning by being an active part of a special community. My dear friends, my special honorees, I'm getting a little tearful. Thank you all for loving Ohav Sholom for 60 years and for giving over and living her mission all that time. May God bless you. May God bless this special place we call Ohav Sholom. Thank you. So I'm still up here because I have the privilege to introduce our next speaker. And I have to explain why it's important to me to be able to, because I've gone through sort of an evolution over the years. I spend a lot of time on that building on 145 South Merrick Avenue. I know where all the leaks are, by the way.
It's not my fault.
Yeah, I know. We'll talk later, Paul. I walk around that building all the time, day and night. And I think about all the people on the plaques on the wall. And particularly the first few years that I was the rabbi at Ohav Sholom, there was one particular place which I was a little scared to go, and that was in the center of the lobby, because there is a portrait of Rabbi Jeremiah Wohlberg. And I'm not sure if this happens to you, but every time I walk by, those eyes follow me. I wish I was joking. It isn't an simple thing to be the Joshua after Moses. It is not a simple thing, but I've grown. Over the years in the beginning, as I said, it was quite daunting. That I was the schnook that took over this beautiful, amazing shul that was instilled in the values of Rabbi Jeremiah Wohlberg. And the ours followed me saying, don't mess this up, Ira. And I would say, after those initial few years, and several mistakes, which many of you have been kind enough to bring up, I felt those eyes encouraging me. The eyes that told me, you're doing a great job, Ira. Don't listen to those people. The eyes that thanked me, and does over and over again, for being able to continue the mission of what Ohav Sholom is all about. When Rabbi Wohlberg, I've told the story so many times, Rabbi Wohlberg sat with me on his last day and my first day in our office, and he handed me a binder, and I said, what's this? He handed me a binder with all these different informations, things like that, and he said, I did it my way, you do it your way, call me if you need anything. There was no greater gift than anyone has ever given me. And it is my privilege and honor to invite one of our honorees this evening, really the foundation of our congregation. It is so special to have him here, and we wish him, of course, to go mechayel achayel from strength to strength. Please rise and give our honor to our founding rabbi, Rabbi Jeremiah Wohlberg.
Thank you, Rabbi Ebbin. With regard to that portrait in the lobby, we have to make some changes there. That was in my pre-Ozempic days. When I came to Ohav Sholom in July of 1962, there were 13 member families. The Board of Trustees was 10 of those families. The first meeting that we had to discuss what our future was going to be and how to bring it about. We sat around in a circle in the store that served as our shul, 127 Merrick Avenue, right next to Merrick Chemists, across the street from the Smith Street School. When the meeting ended, I said, gentlemen, I want to tell you one thing. I'm not sure that we'll be able to bring this to a successful conclusion in terms of our shul. But I want to tell you, you are all people of achievement and accomplishment in your professional lives. I want you to know that someday you will look back and say to your children, I was never involved in a more meaningful project than trying to establish that synagogue. And at the Pesach Seder this year, I turned to our son in whose home we celebrated and who knew of this dinner tonight. And I said to him, Simi, I want you to know, you were born in that community. Very few people have the dreams of their lives fulfilled in the manner in which your mother and father were blessed by God. And everyone who was at that gathering in 1962, whether it's their spirits in heaven or their bodies here on earth, will testify that whatever other achievements in life they were blessed to be a part of, nothing could have been as meaningful as that of helping this synagogue grow and survive. So I want to say to all of my fellow honorees who are present this evening, you were part of our life in a firehouse where I was installed as your rabbi and where the fire engines went out just before Tekiyat Shofar on Rosh Hashanah in our first 2 years. Then you were a part of our store minyan. You were a part of our tent in the backyard with the wind howling and the rains coming down on us on Yom Kippur. You were part of our house. You marched with us on Merrick Avenue, past the Long Island Railroad with our Sifrei Torah. When we left the store and went to the house, you danced with us that first Simchas Torah on the lawn when all traffic stopped on Merrick Avenue to witness something that had never been experienced in our community before, with a chuppah and Sifrei Torah. When I was a child, the most poignant moment in my life as a Jewish child was on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur in Shema Kolenu, when I saw all the elders of the shul I loved and where my father had been the Rav, the spiritual leader, for 39 years. And I saw them all in tears when they shouted, Al tashlichenu li'esikna. Dear God, don't abandon us in our elder years. Kichlos kochenu al tazvenu. When we are weakened, don't leave us. And I thought at that time as a child that that applied only physically to elders, grandparents, great-grandparents, who could no longer function at the level that they once did. But as I've grown older, I've come to understand it has another meaning to it. Al tashlichenu is the cry of everyone who helped you to grow as a Jew, as a human being, as a parent. Don't forget them. In this age of disposable relationships, in this age when the mantra is, what have you done for me lately? Don't forget those who were with you when you gave birth, when you sat Shiva, when your children were married. Don't forget them as the years go by and as memories begin to fade and reality takes on different forms. So I want to thank each and every one of our honorees this evening. You came from such varied backgrounds. I grew up as a child in Borough Park. Until I went to law school, I can honestly say I did not know a Jew who was not an Orthodox, observant, shomer mitzvot, without exception. I knew they existed, but I had no contact with them. Came into another world in Merrick, Long Island, with people, many of whom couldn't read Hebrew, many of whom had not been in synagogue since their bar or bat mitzvah. Many of whom were angry at experiences in their homes and in their Hebrew schools and yeshivot. Where did you come from to be a part of such a shul as Ohav Sholom, which was not compromising on the essence of its mission? And I want to tell you, one of the great memories that I will carry with me is that not of my members of that shul, but of all of your guests and outside family members who came to simchas at Ohav Sholom, who had never been in an Orthodox shul, or who mocked it, or who, like Mimi's friends at NYU, where she went to college, when she told them she's marrying an Orthodox rabbi, and they said to her, Mimi, you're so modern. You're going to have to wash the floor of the synagogue every Friday and put down paper on the floor? Because they had read in Isaac Bashevis Singer, Story of Poland. That was the sophistication. And to see their eyes open up at what we had to let them experience in our shul. I want you to know, amongst the highlights of the 47 years that I had the privilege of serving as your rabbi, there were 6 Ohav Sholom pilgrimages to Israel. Over 100 families went with Mimi and I and with their children on extended tours to Israel. And not a one of them came back without being deeply impacted by that experience. And how many children went to yeshivos here in the States and in Israel? How many homes was I called upon to assist in koshering their kitchen and making it fully kosher? How many of you studied with us to learn the tunes for davening and the Hebrew language to express collective prayer in? All of that is the legacy of those early families. And I want to include, before I end, a special word of appreciation to your Rebbitzin, to my wife. Mimi had just turned 22 years of age when we came to Merrick. She was a young Rebbitzin. I had promised her before we got engaged that I'd never be a rabbi. I told her, Mim, I'm only going to yeshiva because my father said to me he didn't want the line of rabbinic scholarship in the Wohlberg family to end with himself, and that if I didn't go, my brothers wouldn't go. It was a whole convoluted story. I said, but this is not a career. Be careful what yeshiva students tell you. But she, knowing where my heart and head were, wanted me to feel fulfilled, encouraged our coming to Merrick. She came from a marvelous, well-respected family, but I can't begin to tell you how private they were as people. Both my father-in-law and mother-in-law were the most humble, reticent people for being in the public eye, and here their daughter was going to be front and center in our community. And what she did, I'm not going to go into the entire history of it, because I wrote it out and I told it to Mimi, and she said, if you say all those things at the dinner, they're going to ask you, and what did you do? But the fact is, she gave me one gift that I will forever be indebted to her for. And that gift was to project myself with dignity and pride. She taught me that even though our shul at that time only had 15 or 20 people coming on a Shabbos, she said, Jerry, you've got to prepare your sermons or your classes as though there are thousands sitting out there, and give them your best. And to do that, because we were in a little store, she had me wear striped pants and a morning coat, as my father and Brooklyn rabbis did in the old days. And I was walking on Merrick Avenue at 8:30 on Saturday morning, the Amashugana. But it gave me a sense of my own inner pride and dignity. And finally, Mimi encouraged me to reach out to the Reform and Conservative synagogues and rabbis and befriend them as fellow Jews and forget about all the artificial divisions that existed between us. And I can't begin to tell you, those were turbulent religious times. There had been an Isur, a prohibition issued against any involvement by Orthodox rabbis with conservative movements, rabbis, etc. Fortunately, my own Rebbe, Rav Soloveitchik Zatzal, had not signed that prohibition, but it was a very difficult time. To this very day, I remain close friends with those who have served the Merrick Jewish Center and Temple Beth Anna, and our synagogues remain, I pray, still dear friends to one another. So with this I end, my dear friends. The concept of Hakaras Tov. Thank you for remembering, even in later, older years. Thank you for not having abandoned and forgotten us. Forget me not. And a special remembrance to the 6 founding families of our shul, none of whom are here today. But I hope that God reserved a special place for them in heaven. Doris and Herb Cronish, Martha and Bert Robbins, Judy and David Pruss, Joan and Bob Braverman, Judy and David Werman, Pearl and Lou Marks. Te'eh Nishmasam Baruch. May they rest in peace. And thank you for your commitment, for your faithfulness. With regard to the state of Israel, it's been said that maybe we are one of the smallest nations in the world, but we are the biggest, largest family in the world. You are my mishpacha. You help build a beautiful home for us. God bless you, and may Israel and each of you and your families have only besuros tovos, good news and joyous tidings. Mazel tov.
It is so important to us to be able to commemorate this day, a day that really is a wonderful celebration. Jordan is going to mention soon that we are going to be putting together a memory book or a photo book with many of the pictures that were taken today, as well as the tributes, speeches. Rabbi Wohlberg, I hope you wrote yours down. And, and we'll be gifting them to all of our honorees. God willing, we should have that before the 80th anniversary, but hopefully within the next couple of weeks. We also, please God, if we don't get a chance, our state senator Steve Rhoads was supposed to be here earlier. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to be here, but he hopes to be here soon. And if not, he has a citation for all of the honorees as well. And citations, I found out when I came to Merrick, are good, not bad. And he will be, either he'll be here to give out to the honorees at the end of the evening, or we'll be able to package that with the memory book, God willing, as we said, in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, it would be important for us, we so appreciate it, I know it's not so simple, to be able to commemorate this evening. And so before we start our second piece of the program, and ask the honorees so we can take a group picture, and then we'll begin our second session.
Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem.
Just before we begin the second part of our celebration, I want to just thank everyone so much. It's been a very special evening, and of course a very, very special thank you to Rabbi Jeremiah Wohlberg and Rabbi Wohlberg for his beautiful presentation. I do want to correct something. I'd be remiss if I failed to do so. Shh. Thank you. And when we listed all of the incredible members who are no longer with us, including many of our spouses, our family members, I'll be remiss if I failed to mention that Marcel Baruch, who was just a very special soul and an integral part of the fabric of our congregation and community, is very much present here as well. His spirit is very present as we celebrate Miriam and her long-standing membership here and a part of our Ohav family. I failed to mention it before, and I want to make sure that he gets mentioned, as well as all of the wonderful people who we're thinking about today. We're going to continue our program once again with Jordan Smith.
So continuing on with part two of our program, I hope everyone enjoyed dinner and getting to chat. And before we start, several people had come up to me and asked me about ways that you can get involved or help or contribute to make sure that Ohav stays Ohav for the future, that we have financial stability. And so I figured I would just mention that since I've been getting the question. Of course there are ways to help and contribute. The normal ways, of course, like sponsoring something or sponsoring a Hebrew school student. But there's also the Rabbi Jeremiah Wohlberg and Mimi Wohlberg Legacy Circle that just started. So I think some of you know about that, but anybody who doesn't, just come up to me, come up to Rabbi Ebbin, anybody who's interested in thinking about ways that you can help ensure that everything you've experienced will still be there for future generations to experience. We're happy to talk to you about that. So wanted to make sure everyone had that information. And now continuing on, I'm honored to be able to introduce our first speaker, representative of our honorees, Chichi Brumberg, who joined the shul in 1976, and she was the first female president of Ohav Sholom from 1988 to 1989, and I was so thrilled to finally meet her tonight. She and her husband Leonard joined Ohav and raised their two children, Richard and Shari, here, and we would love to hear from you, Chichi.
In 1973, we moved to Merrick. At that time, we were attending services at Baldwin Jewish Center, where Len's parents had been actively involved. But in 1976, it was time for our oldest, Richard, to start Hebrew school and for us to join our own synagogue. Friends told us about an Orthodox synagogue with a terrific Hebrew school and a young, charismatic rabbi, and suggested we look there. I was not sure that coming from a conservative background that would be the right choice for us, but of course it was one of the best decisions that Len and I have made. Abe Greenberg, president at the time, started a young couples club called the Ohavim. We had wonderful events and made lifelong friends. The Galinkins were Bells, Wieners, Goldbergs, Pearls, Grushinskis, among many others. We started attending Shabbos services where we were inspired by Rabbi Wohlberg and moved gently up his proverbial ladder of observance. Years later, we are thrilled that Rabbi and Mimi Wohlberg have become among our dearest friends. Our children, Richard and Sherry, received the fine education in the school just as we had hoped. I became more involved in the administration aspects of Ohav until finally I was honored to become president. We always had a welcoming community atmosphere, and I truly loved working with all our members. It's heartwarming for me to see so many of the children of my contemporaries taking an active role in Ohav. I'm also happy to see Ohav continuing to thrive with a warm and thoughtful leader in Rabbi Ebbin and a fabulous president, Jordan Smith. We're so happy to be here tonight to reconnect with our friends from years ago and to be a part of this terrific celebration. Thanks.
Now I would like to introduce Les Grussgot. Les joined Ohav in 1979 with his wife made Millie Tisselhoff here tonight as well. He has 3 children who are Dana and Noah and Rebecca. And as we all know, he has been teaching in the Hebrew school, I think you said on your video, since 1875. So welcome, Les.
Well, I have to tell you that 3 weeks ago, I was preparing for the Model Seder, and Rabbi Ebbin calls me and says, I need to speak to you. So I'm from the generation, I'm sure some of you, when the Rebbe calls you into the office, it's usually not for a good thing. So I'm sitting on the couch, and he stares at me, and I said, oh God, no. Because I knew what he was thinking. I said, I don't speak in public. But he said, it's for the Hebrew school. And I have to tell you, in the 180 years that I've been working at Ohav Sholom, I have never said no when it comes to the Hebrew school. So what I did today is I lifted up my altikakagachkas, I took a deep breath, and I'm envisioning all my Zion 7th grade students. So before I start, I have to tell you, if I see you with a cell phone, Rabbi Ebbin will take it, and he really doesn't do anything with it, but it's right there. Well, many things have changed since I joined Ohav Sholom with my young family in 1979. In my own life, in our congregation and community, and in the world. But the thing that has remained the same in a positive way is what our synagogue means to me. In a place that represents the values my parents taught me about Judaism, the customs, and about the need to protect and defend our rights and practices to observe freely without fear. It is a place of welcome and warmth. It is a place of acceptance, non-judgmental, and for this I thank Rabbi Wohlberg and Rabbi Ebbin. His commitment to listening, to discussing, to seeing each of us as part of what allows so many of us to find a place in our community. For this, my wife, Wendy, thank you, Rabbi Wohlberg, Rabbi Ebbin, has become a true advocate. I believe the most important role in our synagogue is to create a supportive environment for teaching and for learning. Many parents in our congregation have chosen to send their children to our Hebrew school along with public school education. Within our 4 hours each week, we teach our students to daven, to read Hebrew, to understand the Parsha of the week, to celebrate holidays and to learn about Jewish heritage. These topics are important, but just as important, we need to create an environment where students feel free to discuss how our curriculum relates to their everyday lives, and how customs and practices and holidays and tradition vary from family to family, and how diverse our interpretations are accepted within our community. I want to relate a story that happened, it's 15 years ago, but you'll know why I still remember it. We were in class and we were discussing about Yontif, about Pesach, and if you know the way I teach is, I usually close the door when things happen, but we discuss and we discuss and we discuss. And the kids freely understand that what they say is accepted and that there's no judgment. And one of the students said they're willing on a cruise. And this person also said that he doesn't think there's going to be matzah. So I said, you have to do what mom and dad tells you to do, and you accept what they tell you to do. But talk to mom and dad first, and ask them if you can put a box of matzah in your suitcase for the cruise. And the reason I know it was 15 years ago, because that parent calls me before every Yontif, and now they're on box 15. So what we do in Hebrew school may not affect their lives today and tomorrow, but it does light a fire. And that's what we must do, and that's what we must continue. So thank you for this honor. Thank you, Rabbi Ebbin, for making me do this. I feel comfortable. And thank you. I have one more thing. I'm sorry. Rabbi Ebbin and Rabbi Wohlberg. In 1989,
I was born,
yes, there was an event that happened. There's an old story about 5 rabbis meeting in a room. Orthodox, conservative, don't look at me. Okay. In a room. But this actually happened. In 1989, all our rabbis in our community met for one reason: to make sure that Hebrew school does not end in the 7th grade. We signed the papers in 1989, and I still have a copy with everyone's signature on it, and mine as well, and the Merrick Community Hebrew High School started. We are still in operation. We still have students from every temple in Merrick and Belmore now, and we are thriving. So thank you, Rabbi Ebbin and Rabbi Wohlberg. We could not have done it without you.
Thank you, us. And now that we know you can do it, you better watch out. You're going to be asked to make more speeches. I'd now like to introduce Dave Zwerin. Dave joined Ohav in 1974 with his late wife Miriam, and they raised their 2 sons, Alan and Andrew, at Ohav. He was president from 1986 to 1988, and was also ritual chair for over 20 years. And he served as commander of the Jewish War Veterans, Post 652. Welcome, Dave.
You took the whole speech.
So that was it.
Thank you, Rabbi Wohlberg and Rabbi Ebbin, for all my fellow honorees. Tell you why I got here. Every Friday, Irving Leibowitz calls me on the phone. Irving Leibowitz and I met in October 1951 when we served together in France in the army. So he and I are friends for longer than we can remember. And calls me up on Friday and says, I'm going to the dinner. Are you going? How could I say no? So I'm here because Irvin invited me to the dinner. I got a call from Rabbi Ebbin, want you to speak? I said no. I want you to speak? I said no. And I made a mistake, and it came up from St. Petersburg, Florida. I went into Rabbi Wohlberg's office, and Rabbi Ebbin was sitting there. And he says, I'll make you an offer you can't refuse. You'll speak. So here I am speaking. As you know, I always spoke about the veterans, and now I'm going to speak about Ohav Sholom. Came up from Florida to be here this weekend because I really missed the Entenmann's cake at Ohav Kiddush. Honestly, I grew up to be here with my Ohav family, celebrate with special people who make incredibly special synagogue. Let me tell you, I'm part of a very nice shul in Florida. I became their favorite Levi, but I'm sure everyone in the room will agree with me. There's only one Ohav Sholom. I have so many stories to share with you about the synagogue for more than 50 years that I have been blessed to be part of it. If I shared a fraction of those stories, we'd be here forever. So you might as well get comfortable. I'm only kidding. Rabbi Ebbin already told me that this isn't a Jewish war veteran meeting, so I won't have to yell the whole time, and that it should be brief. So I decided to share one particular story about a particular weekend at shul that made an impactful in my life and the life of my wife, Miriam, of blessed memory, and the lives of children, Alan and Andrew. Many of you honorees were at that weekend as well. I'm sure you will agree with me that, page 2, this story represents everything that made and make Ohav Sholom uniquely and a very special place. I'm sure you know that under the leadership of Rabbi Wohlberg and many of the lay leaders, Ohav Sholom was a leader in Jewish activism, especially on behalf of the Soviet movement Jewry. Well, now that they were free, they came to this country, what are we going to do about it? So we batted around the idea of having a special weekend. And Rabbi said it was okay. The Board of Trustees were discussing it, and the other day I found this card. Enough is enough. Go for it. Got that in Yom Kippur, I don't remember the year, from Rabbi Wohlberg. By the way, I have a copy of every of your sermons that you ever gave and sent out to everybody.
The copyright, David.
I didn't publish them. It happened, they shipped everything up from Merrick, things that I would have thrown away, and all of a sudden they opened this box, and there's the 200 sermons of Rabbi Wohlberg. Well, let me get to what I'm talking about. So the rabbi and the Board of Trustees decided to have a special weekend where we would invite the liberated Soviet Jews. So what are we going to do? So we appointed the committee, subcommittees, and subcommittees of that. And we put together a weekend. The weekend started Friday noon, where 50 or so Soviet Jews came on a bus. They were met by those people who volunteered to house them for the weekend. They were paired off. They went home, they changed, they got dressed, they came back to shul, Friday evening service, Kabbalah Shabbos, Mincha, and then we went into the social hall. A lot of people did a lot of work for many days, many hours, and put together a dinner. At that dinner, we had Rhoads, we had a sermon by Rabbi Wohlberg, we had a wonderful time with our Soviet Jews. We had Mincha, they went home, came back Saturday morning. All the meals were in shoes, so we gave them juice for the morning. We had a service, brachas, chakras. We took out the Torah, and every one of those who housed that family took with them one of the men to share that honor, taking out the Torah, Elias. We had luncheon, we had camaraderie, we had supper, and not supper, we had evening shooters, and people went home. Following morning, they all came back, and we had breakfast. And then they were going to leave. And how do you leave them, go home with nothing? So we gave each family a siddur, a chumash, the men got a tallis, the women got Shabbos candlesticks and candles. And as they left and went on the bus, those who housed them embraced with them, and tears flowed of joy. Just one story of many stories. My friends, I've had many blessings in life, but central to among those blessings that I count my dear friends that I've made and wonderful occasions, moments that occurred in a special building on South Merrick Avenue. It's always been a privilege to serve the sick congregation. I received much, much more than I gave. Mazel to all of us who call Ohav Sholom our home. May she be blessed to go from strength to strength. Shalom lehitraot.
Thank you, Dave, and to all our
David, I
speakers.
think you can go into the rabbinate.
So, you're about to get to our video tribute. Before we do so, I just want to thank some folks because, you know, an event like this does not happen by osmosis. So first, I'd like to thank our Journal Dinner Chair, Adam Cohen, our VP of Fundraising. I'd also like to thank our Second Geners Committee, is what we called it, our second generation Ohavites who helped to plan the event, Richie Nemiroff, Dr. Deborah Cohn, Mark Vessler, Ari German, Kenny Duffler, Adam Marchuk, and Rebecca Hecht for all of their help. Our catering committee, Ann Zimmer, Sherry Balsam, and Nicole Siegel. Heather Linderman for the decorations that you see on your tables. Hannah Diamond for heading up the raffles. Faye Duffler and Adam Gartner for social media and marketing. Ronnie Cohen for her photography tonight. And also thank you to Paul Zuckerberg, Sid Ruthenberg, Steve Harris, and Peter Tannenbaum. And finally, I have to thank my partner in crime on this video, David Hauser, who's spent many hours putting this together, and we really hope that you enjoy it. We did our very best to get it right, and we hope we spelled our names right and put everything that you want to see in there. So please enjoy it, and thank you.
הקדוש ברוך הוא, אנחנו אוהבים Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. Hoidu Hashem ki tov, ki li oilam chasdoi. Hoidu Hashem ki tov, ki li oilam chasdoi.
Hoidu Hashem ki tov, ki li oilam chasdoi. Hoidu Hashem ki tov, ki li oilam chasdoi.
Hapahamoidem ves Hashem, Hapahamoidem ves Hashem, Hapahamoidem ves Hashem, Kili yoilam liyoilam chazdoi. All this is over. Hapahamoidem ves Hashem, Hapahamoidem ves Hashem, Hapahamoidem ves Hashem, Kili yoilam liyoilam chazdoi. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. Hoidu Hashem.
In 1967, a few months after our move to Merrick, my dad attended Minyan at Ohav and was blown away by the young, dynamic rabbi and warm, friendly congregants. He came home and said to my mom, "Belle, we are going for another round of Orthodox."
So we had recently moved into Merrick, and it was in July, and we were looking to join a synagogue. But I heard that they were having a men's club meeting on Sunday. So when I came home, I said, "Ronnie, why don't you go and see, if you like it or whatever." So he went. And when he came in, there were a group of men who were looking at plans. For obviously we had a house, so it was a building that they were going to start building. And they were pointing at doors and saying there were windows, and they were pointing at bathrooms, saying there were classrooms. And he finally said, "Look, I don't belong here, as a member, but I am an engineer, so if you need help." He comes home 2 hours later with these two things under his arms, and I said, "What are those?" I don't know what they were, but he said, "Well, those are plans for the synagogue, the new synagogue." I think we joined because I'm all of a sudden the chairman of the building committee.
This shul, as is always the case, looks for new members, and Rabbi Wohlberg in those days was holding coffee clutches. And so Hilda dragged me to a coffee clutch, and at that meeting, the rabbi made a nice talk to encourage, maybe 6 couples were there, and he spoke about why it was important to join a synagogue. And finally the rabbi said, "Then how could you expect any Jewish practice to rub off on your children if you didn't do it? It wouldn't come to them by osmosis through you from their grandparents." And that's when I realized that I had to make some arrangement to send my children to Hebrew school.
Oise mitzvah hasketano bisimcho Yigagalu loy lasois mitzvah gedoy mer ishoino Oise mitzvah hasketano bisimcho Yigagalu mitzvah gedoy mer ishoino Oise mitzvah hasketano bisimcho Yigagalu loy sois mitzvah gedoy mer ishoino Oise mitzvah hasketano bisimcho יגגלו מצווה גדול אומר ישוינו שכר מצווה אין לי דבר קצווה ואין מתות המצווה חף מנוח המצווה פרסר פועל המזה ומסתם אליל המבוא שכר מצווה אין לי דבר קצווה ואין מתות המצווה חף מנוח המצווה ומסתם אליל המבוא אוי זה מצווה חס גיתנו בשמחו יגגלו לוי נשויס מצווה גדול אומר ישוינו אוי זה מצווה חס גיתנו בשמחו יגגלו מצווה גדול אומר ישוינו אוי זה מצווה חס גיתנו בשמחו יגגלו לוי נשויס מצווה גדול אומר ישוינו אוי זה מצווה חס גיתנו בשמחו יגגלו מצווה גדול אומר ישוינו
I first moved to Merrick in 1976 and joined Ohav that following week.
Soon after Dan and I moved here with our 4 children, we joined Ohav. We were highly recommended by a number of people.
Ohav Sholom in 1976, we were looking for a Hebrew school for our oldest, Richard, and eventually Shari went also.
My wife Miriam of blessed memory and I joined Ohav in 1974 with Alan at age 9 and Andrew at age 6.
Well, the major reason why we came to Merrick was the fact that there was a large Jewish community here. And in addition to that, there was a very prominent groups of different types of Jews. And we found that the Hebrew school, which was run by Dr. Mel Isaacs, and supervised by, of course, Rabbi Wohlberg, was a very integral part of the synagogue. And as soon as the kids were 5 or 6 years old,
Right, ready to go to Hebrew school.
ready to go to Hebrew school, we joined Ohav, been a member ever since. That's close to, 28, 29 years.
We joined the temple as a young family in 1973, and our first memory is celebrating the high holidays in a tent in what is now the parking lot, as the building expanded. Our children attended the Hebrew school and were bar mitzvahed under the tutelage of Rabbi Wohlberg. Many years later, we had the joy of celebrating our grandson's brit at the temple, which, if memory serves, was the first brit that Rabbi Ebbin officiated at Ohav Sholom.
Marcel of blessed memory and I joined Ohav in 1975. Karen and Rona celebrated their bat mitzvah together in our sanctuary on June 6, 1982. And I'm so proud to show you this photo.
תודה לך, תודה לך, תודה לך כלי הולך איתך ורק איתך לא יכול בלי תודה לך על חושך ויאללה אורתו תודה לך
As a Ohav Sholom member since the 1875, I have devoted my time to the Hebrew school, its students, and teaching the Zion class, which is the 7th grade, getting them ready for their bas and bar mitzvah, and making them love Judaism and coming to Hebrew school. And as part of the Hebrew school, we started the Merrick Community Hebrew High School, which has been in existence for over 30 years, and we're still thriving, and all the shuls of Merrick and Belmar are involved.
I started by hosting NCSYers for their Shabbatons, and gradually I became involved in setting up kiddushes, and then I came on the board of trustees. I became co-president of Sisterhood with my sister. We started Shalach Manos. We used to go shopping before the days of computers. I was also on the nominating committee, so maybe behind the scenes. I think my most involvement was also hospitality and housing. For years, we housed Balkores, youth leaders, and the Chazan for Yontif. And to this day, I still do the housing when we have guests or whoever comes to Merrick.
When we got to Ohav, it was the very beginning, really, where there was just a group of people, and if one didn't do it, it wasn't getting done. So I was complaining about the programming. So they said, okay, now you're the chairman, you do something. So we put on plays, and in that time we used to have a house, so it wasn't like a building. So we did a nightclub act, and we had, with Rabbi Wohlberg's permission, men dressed as women, and each one took the role of being asked to do something, to be in a committee, and all the excuses that they had, they could because it was Mashal night or whatever. And so we had a very, very successful show. And then we had other things, we had speakers coming, and that's how I got involved. And then from there I went to, another title, and then I was Sisterhood President from 68 to 70. And through the years, it's just, if they need me, I'm here.
I became Sisterhood President, and up to today, I am on the board.
We became very much active, worked on various committees and functions, and even the children got involved at various times. One of the nicest things that occurred was that I would meet with Rabbi Wohlberg. I would meet him in his office once a week, and he would talk to me about the events that were coming up at Ohav and other thoughts that he had, and I would write an article for Merrick Life for some time.
I was chairman of the Mr. and Mrs. Club, the social arm of the synagogue. I remember one time we organized a Chinese auction to raise some money for the synagogue, and we were going to include a Chinese supper. I organized a committee of people to cut and chop the food, and I cooked it in the synagogue kitchen, and we had a supper for 100 people, which was quite a big success.
Well, we organized a group where we went to each other's homes because everybody was anxious to make friends. And it was such a nice thing to do. And we used to meet at different houses and enjoy ourselves. And it was very nice.
We used to be very active in Soviet Jewry and a march on Broadway, on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. And we were able to get together 10 busloads of
members of Ohav Sholom together and with their children.
I was just involved, trying to welcome people when they came in, because I had such a wonderful welcome when I started, or my family started. And of course, being on the board when I was the youth director. But we put together a wonderful youth group. It was really the beginning, and we had so many things for our kids to do. And that was a wonderful time of my life as well.
I was involved in the men's club as president with Sam Jaffe, and I was also the treasurer.
And bingo.
I volunteered bingo.
Still volunteer.
I still volunteered bingo. Also, we went to marches for Soviet Jewry in New York and Washington, D.C. And I was a bus leader.
I coached Shama Shabbos Little League, the baseball, and it was open to females as well as males. And my daughter was on the team along with my son. I think both daughters were on the team. Yeah, I taught gymnastics. It was for whoever wanted to, or whomever wanted to participate. Yeah, that was the rage at that time, gymnastics.
We became very involved first with the Ohavim, which had been the Mr. and Mrs. Club, and then I moved on to the Board of Trustees, Vice President, Executive Vice President, and then finally the presidency, where I was very pleased and honored to be representing our wonderful congregation.
After having served as Men's Club President, Vice President Virtual Education, Executive Vice President, and President of Ohav, in my retirement, I had the honor of being Ritual Chairman for 22 years.
My mom was a regular at services and became quite involved with sisterhood. She, Miriam Glass, and Marlene Arbiter became lovingly known as the Kiddush Queens. For years, they also ran the bingo kitchen, which meant me bussing tuna melts and pizza bagels. At 16, I took on my first leadership position at Ohav, serving as youth group president for Cozy. As an adult with my own family, I took on more leadership roles. These included being the initiator and co-coordinator of the Women's Tefillah Group, co-chairing the Ohavim Social Club, serving on Ohav's executive board as corresponding secretary, social vice president, and fundraising vice president, serving as catering chairperson, editor of the Ohav newsletter, being on the Hebrew School Board and on various committees, the Ohav Nursery School Committee, the RJW Institute for Adult Jewish Studies, the Rabbi Search Committee, and currently sitting on the Board of Trustees.
Ohav is special to me because it's our family. It's where we've shared our simchas and our losses. It's good people, warm people, giving people.
I can't find any other place where I could be meeting so many wonderful people. And now, of course, bringing it to the younger ones, who I just totally love.
We have established extraordinary, unique, long-lasting friendships from the day we joined Ohav Sholom. And it has brought me comfort, peace, and sense of belonging, and touches my soul.
I find that Ohav is a very important part of my life. It always was, and I find that it has given me another aspect of Judaism and a great deal of spirituality.
I don't know how other synagogues were, but Ohav Sholom was the type of a synagogue where everybody was friendly. When somebody came in, it didn't matter if they were a guest or if they were a very recent member. They were all, it felt like they belonged. It was sort of more like a family than than it was a synagogue. Everyone felt they belonged to it.
Anything I did with the shul was a favorite moment.
I love Ohav Sholom because one of their major priorities is the Hebrew school and their acceptance of all the different children's views, their ability to allow me to many times go off curriculum, and Rabbi Ebbin doesn't yell at me most of the time, and his compassion and understanding that the most important thing about Ohav Sholom is their children.
I think my favorite memories are of the times when I've seen the kids greet Les, his students at the time, or kids who've returned for holidays, kids who are adults with their own kids, to see how they greet him and how their relationships have lasted is wonderful to see.
Well, I guess the sermons given by Rabbi Wohlberg and Rabbi Ebbin, and also encouraged us to go to Israel. So we spent 3 periods there. First, we went a 3-week tour, and then we worked at a Moshav, 2 3-week periods.
As teachers, I was a teacher, Brian was my assistant.
Through the years, we have been blessed with 2 great spiritual leaders whose meaningful sermons have contributed to the richness of our Jewish life. Among our favorite memories are our 2 visits to Israel with some wonderful members of the congregation, led by Rabbi and Mimi Wohlberg, to celebrate Israel's 50th and 60th anniversary. We could never have imagined sitting in that tent during the high holidays in 1973, just how fortunate we were to have found Ohav Sholom.
The reason Ohav is so special to us is because of all the wonderful friends that we made and still maintain through all these years. And of course, from the leadership and the friendship and the warmth of Rabbi Wohlberg. And it still has even though we've been out of Merrick for over 20 years, Ohav Sholom still maintains a very warm and special place in my heart.
My favorite memory at Ohav was the bar mitzvah of Alan and Andrew. The boys' favorite memory was playing floor hockey in the basement. Ohav was the center of our family life for nearly half a century.
Well, I first lost my mother, 1976. I actually went for 11 months to say Kaddish, and Dave Zwerin showed me how to put on a tefillin, and then I started to lead the services.
After we joined a few years later, Rabbi Wohlberg started a program called the Honorees, which were groups of people of the same age. At that time, we were among the younger group.
This is the youngest.
At that time. And they had groups of like 5 or 6 of us, families, couples. Of course, we're still friendly. We still speak. We still met till recently, till COVID.
Till COVID, we meet once a month, right? Different homes, once a month.
That's right.
With so many poignant, meaningful, and moving memories, it's difficult to pinpoint a favorite Ohav moment. I'll just relate a colorful, cozy story about an adventure at the Rocking Horse Ranch. After the usual dude ranch activities, a few of us 16-year-old boys and girls landed in the communal sauna, schwitzing and talking with a group of 12-year-old girls. One of them points to their host and says, "Do you know who the birthday girl is?" None of us had a clue. We had never heard of Brooke Shields. Without pause, Brooke starts telling us all about her commercial shoots and this pretty baby movie she will be starring in. She proclaims to have no inhibitions, and the next thing we know, the bathing suit is off. 6 Ohav teens are looking at each other with embarrassment and some amusement. By the following year, the world is abuzz over Brooke Shields, and coincidentally, Ohav has brought in NCSY. No more cozy adventures, and a lot more Shabbatons.
תודה לך, תודה לך, תודה לך, כלי הולך איתך ורק איתך לא יכול יכול בלי. תודה לך על חושך ויאללה אור הטוב. תודה לך אתה תמיד קרוב. תודה לך על שמש בשמיים בכל יום, על אהבה המלווה לכל מקום. תודה לך על הניסים ויאללה טבע גם. מודה אני מלך חי וקיים. תודה, תודה לך השם, הלב דורש ומבקש על מה שיש לומר. תודה, תודה, תודה לך השם, כל הנשמה תהלל קי וחכה רק לשיר תודה. תודה, תודה לך השם, הלב דורש ומבקש על מה שיש לומר. תודה, תודה, תודה לך השם, כל הנשמה תהלל קי וחכה רק לשיר תודה.
It's our second home.
That Ohav is my second home.
Ohav Sholom is my second home.
Ohav Sholom was our second home.
Ohav was my second home.
We have a congregational family here like no other.
I was the first full-time rabbi at the shul, beginning in July of 1963. My wife and I determined that we would attempt to build an Orthodox Jewish community in suburbia. Hopefully, if we did not succeed within 2 years period of time, I would return to the legal profession from whence I came. And Baruch Hashem, thank God, it's now more than 60 years later, and I look back with great joy on the 47 years that I served as your rabbi. I want to pay tribute to our current spiritual leader and rabbi. I think that was one of the great turning points in the history of our shul when Rabbi Ebbin was designated as my successor, and with God's help will continue to grow Mechayel El Choyel in the years to come.
Good evening, everyone. So I hope you will forgive my lateness, but I am thrilled to have walked in on that beautiful tribute and beautiful celebration of Ohav. There are, for those of you who don't know, I am actually and to all of our, I heard there were a few other youth directors out here. I'm actually the youth minister over at St. Pius X Parish in Plainview, and we had our own open house event, our recruitment drive, for lack of a better word, this evening, so hence the reason for my being a little late. But I was happy that I came in on that video, because it underscores a point that I think that is so important. Just like a church, a synagogue is more than a building. A synagogue is people. A synagogue is a family. And you have an incredible family here at Ohav. Everyone who has been a part of this synagogue since its founding in 1963, and we're now celebrating 61st year of Ohav, has not only done amazing things for their faith, but has done amazing things for our community. And ultimately, whether you are Protestant or Catholic, Christian, Jew, it doesn't matter, in the sense that what matters is that we're using the gifts and talents that we've been given by God to serve others. And that is the legacy of Ohav, building a family that serves others, that honors God through that service. And that is so tremendous. Now, I've spoken at Hebrew school a few times, and I've told this story before, and some of you may have heard it, and I know Rabbi Ebbin certainly has. But one of the most inspirational stories that I heard as a child. And it's a story about an old man walking along a beach. And the beach stretches as far as the eye can see. And there was a storm the night before, and the waves came crashing in. And along with the waves crashing in, it littered the beach with starfish. And when the water receded, those starfish were stranded on the beach. And up ahead, this old man happens to see far off in the distance a little boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old. And that little boy, he sees, is bending down and is picking up starfish one by one, looking at them and throwing them back into the water. And eventually he catches up to the little boy and he says to him, "Son, do you mind my asking, what is it that you're doing?" And he said, "Well, the storm last night stranded all of these starfish on the beach. And if nobody puts them back into the water, they're going to die." And the little boy looks at the old man. The old man then turns around and says to him, "Well, don't you understand? You're one little boy. This beach has thousands upon thousands of starfish on it, as far as the eye can see. You're not going to be able to save everyone. You're not going to be able to make a difference." The little boy thinks about it, and then he bends down, and he picks up another starfish. And he looks at it, and throws it as far as he can out into the water. And then he turns to the old man and he says, "But I made a difference to that one." This world is filled, especially now, especially with the significance of what today is, and especially with what's going on in the world around us. This world has tremendous problems. Insurmountable, one would think, problems. But each of us believing, each of us trying to make a difference, each of us going out into the world around us and being ambassadors of light instead of the darkness that we see surrounding us, even here in our own home, with what's going on our college campuses and the intolerance that we're seeing in our communities. Each of us is called upon to be that ambassador of light. And that light will overcome the darkness. And Ohav is that light. And that's why myself, as the Catholic kid, wanted to come here to say thank you. Thank you for the service that you give, not just to our community, but thank you for the service that each of you continue to give to humanity in standing up for and fighting for what is right and making our world a better place for your having been here. So congratulations to Ohav on 60 years, but more importantly, congratulations and thank you to each and every person in this room for being the inspiration that others can look to as they follow their faith journey and try to make our world a better place. Congratulations, and may God bless each of you.
Thank you so much, Emeritus. And that concludes our program, but I want to just say thank you to all of you for being here. Your excitement was infectious, all the honorees. You were so excited for tonight. It made us so excited for tonight and to do this. And I hope that you will not view this as tonight only. I think what we've learned is how much we all enjoy being together, how meaningful it is for us to spend time together and to talk to each other. And so please, come to Ohav, come back to us, come when you want to come to events, and let's keep this going. Let's keep this group going. We are a family. So thank you so much for being here tonight, and good health and happiness.
One final time to take the last word, if I may. David Hauser and Jordan Smith, thank God, do not have billable hours for the amount of time that they put on that video, because we would be long bankrupt. I want to thank Jordan and David for their incredible efforts in putting together such a wonderful, wonderful production. Thank you so much. I also want to note as well that we didn't want to have everybody stand up. It's not so easy for our honorees to stand up, but Senator Rhoads was nice enough to give each and every one of you a citation. You'll pay that at the end on the way out. No, I'm just kidding. And we will be going around doing to disseminate it to our honorees. And finally, I want to mention that right after dessert, in about 5 minutes, we'll make it 7. We're going to daven Marv in the library once again, as we. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for a special, special night. May God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem.